Hugh Freeze has spoken on his QB and his offensive line, but should Auburn fans feel more or less confident headed into Baylor? Welcome on into the Auburn Express, powered by the War Corps. I'm your host, Mike G. Thank you so much for turning us up and turning us on. Turn it out. I'm here with my good friend Taylor Davis, sideline reporter for ESPN and Auburn grad. One of the reasons we love to have Davis here. Guys, Taylor has made the crazy decision to try to come and talk to us every single week here on the show. So I'd like to welcome her back for week number 2, headed into week number 1. Taylor, before we play some clips here from Hugh Freeze and I get your thoughts on quarterback and offensive line, I just wanted to get your general feeling. Week 0 is in the books. We saw a crazy Big 12 game over in Dublin. And, 2 top 25 teams that maybe looked a little sloppy here in week 1. It was a sloppy game. The chances that we may see a sloppy game from Auburn to out the gate, that the prospect of it makes fans a little nervous. What's your feeling going into game 1 and how fine-tuned this offensive attack should look heading into Baylor?
Yeah, I think the prospect of seeing sloppy games across college football is very likely to happen. Keep in mind, as prepared as you are, even some of the most veteran teams, you've been going up against your own dang teammates, the guys that you're in the locker room with. There is just a different level when you finally put your hand in the turf and you're going against an opponent. A lot of the communication, you can play all the music on your speaker system on your practice field. Nothing is like an actual game day environment. So I think you are going to see some false starts. I think you are going to see some penalties and some miscommunication early from even some of the best teams. That's the nature of getting started. I think the likelihood that we could see that in Auburn is there. I don't think it worries you any more this year than it does in just the reality of week 1 of college football. I think that there's going to be some kinks that you have to work out. The difference this year is you don't really have the cushion of a week 1 opponent to try and work those kinks out. So you expect to see them, but they got to be minimal because you won't have much room for error with an opponent like Baylor.
I could not agree more. Look, you've had weeks to prepare, and so hopefully it is a fine-tuned machine with the quarterback that this coach picked and the offensive line and all the receivers and all the weapons. Hopefully we see a fine-tuned machine. But look, Hugh Freeze was asked a question by the smartest member of the media to get his.
I wasn't there, so it couldn't have been.
To get his week started, and here's what he had to say about his quarterback.
Coach, you've been coaching your quarterbacks hard this fall camp. Can you talk about Jackson Arnold's preparedness for game 1 and where you feel he's at? Can you rate that? And then second part of the question, how do you prepare your team on a short week for game 1 when you've got a Friday game and you're traveling on the road?
Yeah, I'll do that one first. That again, being game 1, it's not that you have time to plan. So we actually formulated the last 2 weeks, just like it was a Friday game. So we've been able to, it is a little different for sure, but, you have to remind yourself that today's really a Tuesday and you're not normally on that same schedule on the normal week where you're practicing hard on a Monday or a Sunday, but having it be the first game has helped with that. Jackson, I think, is progressing every practice, and I'm excited to see him go and compete in our mock game that we had. I thought his decision-making was really good. I wish he'd hang in the pocket a little more and go through his progressions, and we're working on that with him. But at the same time, he's an athlete that creates some things too when he does escape the pocket. And so you have to balance that as a coach, I think. But he made good decisions. We've got to make sure, again, that we're not doing too much where our receivers, we want them in the right spots at the right time, and making sure, because I think we're athletic enough there to win. Just be sure we're not making stuff up, on a given play because you think you see something, or just do what the play is designed to do. And I think we're good enough there to win and get open. and that will help our quarterbacks. It'll be interesting, you know, how we protect in this game with all the different exotic blitzes that they have. You know, we've got a good plan for that, I think. But Jackson is, I'm pleased with his progression. Also pleased with Deuce and Ashton. Deuce in the mock game the other night was 7 for 7 and looked like nothing fazed him. And again, I know it's not against Baylor, but he was very accurate, stood in the pocket, threw the ball, and was really impressive. And Ashton did some really nice things also. So, but pleased with where Jackson's at. Excited to see him go and see what he does under the lights here Friday night.
A lot of things to unpack there, Taylor. First of all, good decision-making by the quarterback in the mock game that they had. Let's start there. Look, decision-making was something that was a topic of conversation last year when it came to quarterback play. This year, if they fix that, I think that the prospects for this passing game look pretty bright.
Yeah, I mean, I think it became such a hot button phrase last year, game manager, around Auburn, because as much as they would sing the praises of Peyton Thorne's abilities in practice, he was arguably putting Auburn in a more difficult situation once game time would come. And so they would attribute that to game management. And so to hear that proper decisions are being made, I'm glad to hear it. But at the end of the day, we're going to learn way more in 2 quarters of ball Friday night than all of fall camp. You just can't take it as Bible, because it is so different when you're up against another opponent. And I like that he's acknowledging what they're going to see in a very creative Dave Aranda defense, because that is not going to be an easy test for Jackson Arnold. And it's not going to be the best opportunity for him to get confident. But if his mind is right, and if his decision-making has not seemed to be anything hindering him thus far, you feel better about that. And we're going to get into the offensive line here in just a little bit. But the reality is Dave Aranda is a defensive mind. He's got experience in the SEC, so it's not going to catch him by surprise to see a Hugh Freeze variation of an offense. He also went into the portal and beefed up their defensive front. So they're a lot bigger than they were last year. So it's not an easy test for Auburn's offense to get into a groove, but to hear that Jackson has prepared well, that Jackson has come to learn the system well, I take as much confidence in as you possibly can from a head coach giving you feedback at the end of fall camp. Now, I will say his emphasis on staying in the pocket and not getting outside and immediately wanting to create. I have PTSD from phrases like that, because we heard it so many times in regards to Peyton Thorne, and it never got fixed. Now, here's why I think he's emphasizing that. This is the most stacked wide receiver room Auburn's had. This may be the most stacked wide receiver room in the country. Hugh Freeze knows if Auburn wins this year, it's because they utilize these wide receivers the way they should. And the only way that happens is if the conductor of the train, Jackson Arnold, gets them the ball efficiently and effectively. You have guys that can literally change a game. These aren't just good talents. These are game changers. And you don't have just one of them back, the Seth Williams day where it was like, all right, we got a guy, No. Okay, they're going to double Cam Coleman. They're going to try and make Jackson Arnold throw it into triple coverage on Cam Coleman. Fine. We got Eric Singleton this year. Perry Thompson's come along. Malcolm Simmons is back out there. Horatio Fields, who no one is talking about, is interesting to me. But the depth of weaponry that this Auburn offense has is unlike anything we've seen on the Plains in quite a long time. But Hugh knows if Jackson is not patient, if Jackson gets scramble happy and tries to make things happen on his own, he may be able to create a few. But that explosive was sitting right there. And that's going to be the difference in Auburn wins and losses, because as we saw last year, 3rd and long wasn't happening, no matter how athletic of a Peyton Thorne run and this year a Jackson Arnold run you could get. That's going to get you some dirty yards. It can move the chains. But you're talking wins and losses. You got to hit those explosives, and you have the wide receivers that can dominate and get it done.
The depth of potential for explosiveness is sitting on the sidelines in the wide receiver room, something I think fans are looking forward to seeing the most.
Yeah.
Could we see some 4 receiver sets out there? I mean, they ran a lot of 12 personnel last year, 2 wide receivers, 2 tight ends, and a running back, which limited the amount of time that some of the slot guys got on the field. But they want to. I want to see Malcolm Simmons and Eric Singleton out there together, personally dicing up defenses with potentially Perry Thompson and Cam Coleman or Horatio Fields there. They praised him during this press conference as well. Look, lots to unpack there. Again, it's going to all play out on the field, but not without some comments about this offensive line that has been much maligned over the years. We're going to talk about them right after a quick word from our sponsors, our friends at Ain and Associates. Guys, we want to shout out Abel's, Iannone, and more. They've been in business for almost 25 years. They manage over $200 million for clients in over 25 states in 2 foreign countries. They're not some big corporate operation. This is an Auburn family providing honest guidance and top-notch service. You'll get to feel a small town vibe with years of insight and perspective along with results. Jeff, David, Colin, and his wife, Robin, are great to work with. Contact Abel's, Iannone, Moore and Associates at 912-777-4128. Again, that's 912-777-4128, or visit AINC.com to see why they're different. You don't need millions of dollars to need financial advice or need a financial advisor. You just need a paycheck and some plans for the future, and these guys can help. I know after just one conversation with them that changed my outlook on my financial future, they can change yours too. The War has been compensated by Abel's, Iannone, Moore and Associates for this endorsement. Abel's, Iannone, Moore and Associates is a registered investment advisor. Registration as an investment advisor does not imply a certain level of skill and training. The information in this advertisement is for informational purposes only and should not be considered personalized investment advice. All investing involves risk, including the potential for loss of principal, and past performance is not indicative of future results. Taylor, let's jump back in here. The offensive line is going to be either something that we are pulling our hair out over, or we're celebrating the end of this one. I feel there is no in between, but we shall see. Freeze was asked a question about his offensive line. Let's listen to what he had to say.
Hugh, you were in here last week talking about you wanted to see more from your guys up front with pass protection, straining more, doing that. How did they respond to that? How did you see that group do the last week in that area specifically?
Yeah, they've improved. I know they're very capable of doing that. And again, I say things sometimes that are, and I don't know that everybody hears everything I say. They see 1,000 different looks right now that they probably hadn't been coached very well to protect either. And so, I hope that means we've got some good one-on-one pass rushers. And I think, the thought behind that was I felt like we were losing too many one-on-ones in that. And Baylor certainly has guys that will test us, but I feel confident in who our guys are. And I think it helps when you get in a game and you're not playing yourself, and you would hope. But it doesn't matter who you play. If you stay in 3rd and long, you're going to be in trouble. You're just not going to convert many of those against quality teams like Baylor. So I think what helps our offensive line more than anything is us winning 1st and 2nd down and getting into 3rd and manageable situations where we can do both run or pass. That would benefit them greatly. But they've responded well. Excited to see them have a chance to go out and prove that they're a quality SEC offensive line.
He'd like to see them win 1st and 2nd down a little bit more, but I think play calling is going to have a lot to do with whether they can win 1st and 2nd down a little bit more.
Yeah.
Talk to me about this offensive line. Last week, you and I noted there's been more optimism around the potential for this group to play well than we've seen in 15 years. It's been a while since everyone's been this optimistic about the offensive line going into the season. Now, I think in 2010, it was a senior group, but they were coming off an okay season. In 2013, same thing. They were coming off the worst season in Auburn history. So maybe there wasn't a lot of optimism around the program in general. This year, the level of talent that they brought in at the skill positions, combined with some of the transfers that have come in on the offensive line with Xavier and Mason Murphy, I got to believe that this line has nowhere to go but up.
Definitely. And I believe they have the makings to uphold the expectations. I really do. I have a lot of faith in this offensive line. And I think it's one of the most encouraging signs that Auburn fans should latch on to. I know that there's so much unknown with Jackson Arnold, and there's always going to be debate around an SEC head coach, but I believe in the hype around this offensive line. And I said the last time you had me on that I actually think that a lot of Auburn's season is predicated more on the offensive line play than on the quarterback position. Because to me, I think I've said this to you before, I say it all the time, football is a game of dominoes. Like, you can have an unbelievable, Johnny Manziel, but at the end of the day, he can only do so much. Like, all the positions impact each other. And so this offensive line has to give Jackson Arnold time to get established. And like Hugh Freeze was saying, buy time in the pocket, get those receivers downfield, find those explosives, build that continuity. They also have to create some rush lanes, because I still believe in this running back room. Obviously, you lose a guy like Jarquez Hunter and everyone's like, oh gosh, but I believe in Damari Alston. I believe in Jeremiah Cobb, and the new guys are starting to make a splash too. So you got to create rush lanes that are effective for them to ball. You've got to give Jackson Arnold time, and you have to communicate effectively as an offensive line. That's the one thing that makes me go, ooh, we got to figure this out quickly. The chemistry of the offensive line can't be overemphasized. Like, it is crucial. Being on the sideline and having the perspective that I do, when an offensive line gels, it's so evident. They almost walk the same. Like, they take the field. They are one. And those are the most efficient ones that I've ever covered in my career. And that's what Auburn needs to have. This group needs to move as one. They need to operate as one. They need to build that chemistry. And when you have some new pieces coming in, at times that's difficult to build, but they're going to have to do it, because I think that the flow and the rhythm of this offense is predicated on how quickly those front guys can gel. But I think that this is a great opportunity for them to do it. I think that they're going to be tested mentally by a Dave Aranda defense. They will bring you exotic blitzes, like Hugh says. They'll show you different looks. They'll try and get you off your keys, try and make you jump. And these guys have to be mentally disciplined and very sound. And then obviously the physical component of holding up. But I think if you look at it from a personnel perspective, I lean Auburn. I really do. I feel good about the matchup. And I think winning those one-on-one battles and being mentally disciplined is going to be the difference maker. But for Auburn to have the season that everyone is hoping for, the offensive line has to be the not so secret weapon.
I could not agree more. The other not so secret weapon is the receiver room, which I want to expound. We talked a little bit at the top of the segment, but after the break, I want to go back into this wide receiver room here and then get some more predictions from you headed into Friday night. Guys, this episode of the War Report is brought to you by our friends at Golden's Cast Iron. Visit goldenscastiron.com/WR. Use code Get Your Weight Up for 15% off your weights and code TWR for $65 off fire pits and Kamado grills. The summer is here. You want to be outside grilling with your family or staying in shape with some Golden's Cast Iron weights. Work out, grill out, chill out with Golden's Cast Iron. Also want to thank our friends at the Rogue Shop. Visit rogueshop.com. Use code REPORT to get 15% off your Rogue Shop order. Visit them for all your herbal medicinal needs, pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, whatever ails you in life. The Rogue Shop has something that has you covered. Great sponsors of the War Report. They put a little something extra in there for everybody using code REPORT today. So you want to make sure to get your Rogue Shop order in now. Get the fall kicked off the right way with the Rogue Shop. Also, want to thank our friends at the Vibe Vault. If you're looking to get fresh for the weekend, the Vibe Vault has you covered. You can find them at 3460 Road, Suite E in Phoenix City, Alabama. Not just barbers, lifestyle consultants. You can find them across the street from Chattahoochee Valley Community College, right next to the Renfro Supermarket, and right next to the Marco's Pizza. The Vibe Vault, that's where I choose to get fresh for the weekend, Taylor. Maybe not. Definitely the place for me. Let's jump back into our conversation here. As I mentioned, the wide receiver room is going to be top of mind for everybody. Cam Coleman, Eric Singleton Jr. getting the most hype. Cam Coleman was voted preseason first team All-SEC by the media. I know I voted for him. A lot of my media associates did as well, as he made preseason first team All-SEC. But Eric Singleton, the transfer from Georgia Tech, comes in, and he made third team preseason All-SEC for a guy who hasn't taken a snap in the SEC, which I think speaks to his talent. Early reports are he runs a 40-yard dash, 4.2s, blazing NFL type speed that should be on display here Friday night. Beside that, we've got Perry Thompson, top 30 overall player in last year's class that came in with Cam Coleman. I think he was rated 29 or 28, depending on which service you look at. But he's looking to have a breakout year as well, too. Kind of buried on the bench behind Keandre Lambert-Smith last year, but they're going to look to get him on the field this year. And then you got Malcolm Simmons. Got in a little trouble this offseason, but he's been cleared to play. And he played a lot as a freshman. So his playmaking ability from the slot going to be top of mind for Auburn fans. Last but certainly not least, in this press conference, we're not going to play the clip, but Hugh Freeze praised Horatio Fields, called him the father of the wide receiver room, compared him to
Okay.
Keandre Lambert-Smith last year, said that he is a leader, not only in word, but in action there. The expectations on this group is as high as I've seen since that class I think that they had back in like 2016 or something with Kyle Davis and Nate
Yeah.
Craig Myers and those guys.
Oh
This
my God.
this class is worlds ahead of them. And we've got a whole year of Cam Coleman to say, look, man, it appears that at least the leader in the clubhouse from
Yeah.
a high school recruiting standpoint is the real deal. How disappointed are you going to be, man, if there's not like a 100-yard receiver out there Friday night, or there's not a couple touchdowns for one of these receivers? The receivers have to be, they've got to be stars in this one.
I mean, you better hope they are, or else I don't know how long you're going to keep them in Auburn. I mean, these guys have talent for teams to jump on the back of. Like, it blows my mind watching some of this film and the versatility of these guys. You know, obviously you try not to put too much expectation on. I hate like stars and stuff out of high school. I'm like, okay, we've seen 2 stars ball out. We've seen 5 stars crumble. It doesn't tell you anything, but the around Cam Coleman was warranted. Okay. This guy is one of those talents. And so I think that he has to have a big year. If he doesn't, I think something went wrong at the line of scrimmage or at the quarterback position, because he is a difference maker and the coaches recognize that. I think if you don't see big stats, it's because they're distributing it evenly, which I'm honestly not mad at either. Like, as much as you want to give, you know, those highlight reels and those Sports Center top 10 games to a guy like Cam Coleman, you can get so creative with a guy like Eric Singleton Jr. I mean, you could have him line up out of the backfield. You could do some really interesting stuff with him. A Hugh Freeze offense with a little wrinkle of an Eric Singleton Jr., if it's clicking on all cylinders, I think there's opportunity for all of these guys to ball in the same game. Now, it may not put up the same big numbers, but it makes your offense one of the most dangerous to face, because you do not know who to laser in on. They have such versatility. There is such depth, and you give them all opportunities to do what they're good at. Like, I want to see that from all of them. I think it will be so weird, though, if halfway through the year it's our pass game that we're all talking about, because as Auburn fans, it's like, no, Auburn and run game have been synonymous since I don't even know how long. So if all of a sudden we're some massive pass happy offense, it will be wild, but you've got the targets that you very well could. So I put a lot of interest on that group, obviously, and the quarterback and the offensive line. We're covering all of it here. I also think that this defense is going to have their hands full, and I think Auburn fans need to continue to look at both sides of the ball here, because my last game last season that I covered was actually Baylor's bowl game. I had the Texas Bowl when they played LSU.
Oh wow.
So I saw how their season closed out, and they had a sour taste in their mouth because they felt like they finally put it together. They won 8 straight to close out the season. A lot of those guys, specifically on the offensive side of the ball, return. Quarterback Sawyer Robertson is obviously the main one. Running back Bryson Washington, though, Auburn's defense needs to be lasered in on him because he left the bowl game with an injury. I actually had to cover his injury. He was on the sidelines crying. I was behind his bench. He had the towel over his head. He was devastated. And I only say that because guys that are that shaken up emotionally by something, they come back with a vengeance. They come back. They approach rehab so differently, and their return means more to them. It's not just physical. There was an emotional, mental component they had to heal from as well. So he's a guy that you really have to be careful with. He was the first Baylor freshman to have a 1,000-yard rushing season. So this is a guy that you give respect to, as well as wide receiver Josh Cameron, specifically on special teams. Y'all watch out for this guy on punt and kick returns. He lights out last year, and I think he's going to build on it. So this Baylor team has more star power than you realize, and they've been there for a long time. They're an older veteran group. They won't get rattled as much, and they have the comfortability of playing at home. So this is a tough test for Auburn. I feel confident that they have the makings to get it done, but they're going to have to play a mentally sound football game.
Look, I agree with you. I think it's going to be a tough test. It's one I expect Auburn should be able to handle with the level Hugh Freeze has brought in. Now, I will say this: while they did close their season on a heater, they played one defense with a pulse.
Yeah.
over those last 6 games. It was Houston was, the only top 50 scoring defense that they played, and they only scored 20 points in that game. Houston could do nothing offensively, and then LSU came in there and dropped a 44 on them defensive. But I like your point about that sour taste when your season ends on that note. Sometimes those guys come back ready, feeling like they have to prove something. And that motivation can be a dangerous thing. Thinking about like Cal, Auburn's home and home with Cal. After losing at home, Cal came back that next game very, very motivated to play a tough game versus an Auburn squad who, quite honestly, should have won that game. They had
Cal wasn't a great team.
Yeah.
But sometimes that's not all it's about. It's not about roster matching up with roster.
Yeah. It was looking at how Auburn lost that game. I couldn't help but think, you can't get, if you're Auburn, you can't get beat by teams that just simply want it more than you do.
Correct.
And I think that's, if we go back all the way back to 2017, when Auburn lost to UCF in that bowl game, I think UCF was just a team that wanted it more. They had more to prove. They felt like they were overlooked. Auburn should have been in the college football playoff, but they weren't. And no one will say this part out loud, but there may have been some guys on that team that felt like that bowl game in Atlanta was beneath them.
Well, I also point to losing the SEC championship to Georgia. There were some guys on that team that also didn't want it. So that plays a piece of it.
Yeah.
And as much as I think Auburn has every reason to get this dub on Friday, I do think that you have to recognize where Baylor has maybe some strengths that do deserve a lot of attention from this Auburn team.
Could not agree more. Look, we'll be there covering it. The War Report will be live from Waco. My guy Ike Jones is going down there. I'll be in the comfort of my living room watching college football this Saturday. I know you'll be on the comfort of the sideline here. Before we get out of here, what game? Tell our listeners what game you're covering this weekend.
Yeah, so I will be covering Mississippi State's opener this season. They are traveling to Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Interesting. You would think that Southern Miss would be going to Starkville, but Mississippi State is going to play at Southern Miss, who has a new head coach this year, Charles Huff, who comes down from Marshall and brings about 21 of his guys from Marshall. They basically just brought the whole team down. They won the Sun Belt Championship last season and basically just brought them all down to Hattiesburg, hoping to repeat some success there. And obviously Mississippi State looking to turn the page on a brutal season last year, finishing last in the SEC. But quarterback Blake Shapen returns for his 6th year in college football. Former Baylor quarterback. He actually won the Big 12 championship his freshman year as the starting quarterback at Baylor. So he has an interesting resume, and coming back from a shoulder injury, he's looking to close it out on a much higher note than a 2-10 season last year. So we'll see what the Bulldogs are able to do week 1.
All right. Well, have fun there. Guys, do me a favor. Tune in to Taylor on Saturday. Supported Auburn gal. I love the work that you're doing. And I've chosen to join us here at the War Report every week to talk Auburn football. Guys, that's it for another great edition of the Auburn Express, powered by the War Report. Hit the comments after the video. Let us know what you think about this game. Anything about the offensive line, the quarterbacks. We want to hear from you. Also, while you're in the comment section, smash that super thanks button. Your financial support helps keep the work that we're doing here going. We are the War Report on every social media platform. TW Report on TikTok. We're signing off, and as always, Corey.